I guess we're live now. I'm still trying to find the YouTube. I got to refresh this. I'll be able to see what you guys are chatting about in 1 second. There we go. All right, everybody. How's everyone doing today? Ron is not going to be joining us today. He is a sick little puppy. And so everyone say a nice prayer for him and for speedy recovery. It's the same reason we couldn't do the Glitch in the Matrix last night. And I've spoken with him on the phone on Sunday, and he did not sound that good. So he'll get better in a couple days, we hope. How do I sound, anybody? Thank you, Tracy. Ron appreciates your prayers. Yeah, I think he came down with something. He was going to go up with us to Los Angeles on Saturday to meet with G. Edward Griffin, the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, which he's a personal hero of mine and Ron's. And Ron calls me Saturday morning, and he goes, "Dude, I don't think I can make it. I feel like I'm getting sick, and I don't want to, possibly infect Mr. Griffin, who's 92 years old." So Ron stayed home, missed a great opportunity. But to make up for Ron missing that, and by the way, it was a phenomenal experience. That is a great gentleman, and his wife was just a class act. It was so much fun. That was a night I'll never forget. But we got Ron a signed copy of the Constitution by Mr. Griffin, and I got him to agree, Mr. Griffin, in the next couple of weeks, when Ron's all better, we are going to, Ron and I are going to have an interview with Mr. Griffin. So that will be a lot of fun. And it's too bad Ron couldn't make that, but he felt he was getting sick Saturday, and sure as heck he is. It's 3 days later, and he's he's pretty miserable right now. So Doug and I got to drive about 2.5 hours each way from Temecula to Thousand Oaks, where the Griffins live, and spent a couple hours with this great gentleman. If you're not familiar, he's one of the he's just one of the pioneers of the freedom movement, and he's still at it. When I asked him to do the interview, he goes, "This is what I do. I go on channels and I want to get the word out." So, the guy's still sharp as a tack. The reason he was going to be the keynote speaker at Doug's Constitution Association dinner in September. He'd agreed to that to be the keynote, and his daughter or daughter-in-law, I forget which, just after his last cross-country trip, he just doesn't have the stamina to do those kind of long drives. The original plan was I was going to pick him up at Thousand Oaks and drive him to Temecula and back. And, for me, getting 2 hours in the car with the guy would have been quite a treat. Ron was going to go along for at least one of those legs. But since he wasn't going to be able to make it in September, we decided to go up in LA and record the interview. And you guys are going to look forward to that. Doug was at his best. He did about a 25-minute interview with G. Edward, and you're going to watch every last minute of it, because when they got done, I had goosebumps. The guy is a phenomenal speaker, and just someone I've admired for a very long time. And if you haven't read the book, boy, you're missing out. We the People is going to the Reawaken tour on August 10th. Where is that? I went to one Reawaken tour, the one in San Diego, and I guess you guys, I don't know if you know, but I've had Clay Clark on my show a couple of times. You're going to have that be at one of the last of the Reawaken tours, because Clay is shutting it down. He's going to be doing other things, and I asked him about that on my last interview with him a couple of weeks ago, and he couldn't go into too much detail, but it sounds like he's going to be doing something with the Trump team. I guess we'll find out more. The Griffins, that's G. Edward Griffin and his wife. The author of Creature from Jekyll Island basically exposes the entire creation of the Federal Reserve. And he's got some great quotes, and he got a kick out of it. I've watched so many videos of his. I was reading his quotes to him from memory. One of my favorites is the Federal Reserve banking system, because it's not federal. There are no reserves. It's not a bank, and there is no system. Now, Thousand Oaks is a neighborhood in the north part of LA, so we got to drive through the concrete jungle. Traffic was amazing. It's the first time I've gone on a long trip with Doug, and let's just say his driving techniques are. I might have aged a year or two, but we got there and back. No, I'm kidding. He's fine. The guy put so many miles on his car. He knows this, and he used to be a trucker, So he knows the roads pretty well. Peter and Lois. I don't get that reference. Hello, Michelle. What else is going on? I spent a little time this weekend reading the Republican Party of Texas's 49-page platform, and that's a phenomenal read. Somebody there's taken Doug's class. Whoever wrote that, they had all kinds of great language, especially about Second Amendment. They talked a bit about secession. It's in Batavia, New York. They moved it from Rochester. Oh, sorry, Darren. I never watched The Family Guy. I didn't get the reference. I've seen maybe 5 episodes of that. I heard it's hilarious. I just don't watch much TV like that. I think the only time I ever put on TV, maybe to watch Tucker. That's about it. I canceled cable a long time ago. Yeah, let's see. I don't know. Is We the People going to be at the last of the Reawaken tours? Anyways, you're going to have a great time. They're phenomenal. When we went, Ron got us press passes from our Glitch in a Matrix channel, so we got to go in the press room and meet a lot of the speakers. Who were some of the ones we met? General Flynn, of course, Ann Vandersteel, Scott McKay, but Ron's known him forever. It was the first time I'd met him. Who else was there? A lot of really good names. Anyways, it's a good time, and just about every one of the speakers was very generous with their time. And Alpha was there, Alpha Warrior, one of our partners, and he actually got to bring his equipment and did some interviews there on backstage. So that was pretty cool. But even if you don't have a press pass, it's an awesome event. Not quite a Trump rally, but quite a bit of patriotic energy in the room. All right, let's see. It's 2:55 now. What time is Mr. Gibbs going to be here? Let's put your predictions in the chat. I'm going to say, I get to go first. I'm going to go 3 o'clock sharp. And I have no inside knowledge. The royalty of the truth movement. Yeah, it's amazing some of the people I've gotten to meet just in the last couple of years. A lot of it's through Ron. I mean, Ron knows everybody, from being on tour with Scott McKay and all that. But you want to talk about a Rolodex. It's pretty amazing. You see these people on video and stuff like that. Next thing you know, you're chatting with them face to face, having them come on his show. I never thought about having a show. I kind of would have liked to have stayed anonymous my whole life. I have not met Mike Lindell. Nope. I've not had that pleasure. Although, I think Alpha has, and I'm pretty sure Ron has. All right, we got a 259 bet. Hello, S. Flacky. Who are some of the other really cool ones? Doug Billings, who's very, very nice. Really, really friendly. Just all the guys in the shows. It's cool. It's great. It's a great movement to be a part of. So Chris is with me at 3 o'clock sharp. You're going to be streaming it live. Oh, that's awesome. Alpha Warrior's done that before, so you must have talked to the same people. The gal who does his bookings for the show is a girl named Terry, and the We Awaken tour. That's what I thought you meant. And who's his right hand man? JT. I'm sure you talked to both of them. Really good people. They actually reached out to me to see if I wanted to get some advertisers on my channel, and I told them I had to decline for now. In my business, if you do any kind of income outside of the investment business, you've got to declare it. And Mr. Gibbs is here. Who got 258? Nobody, but Michelle's the closest. Michelle wins it. All paid trip to? I don't know. We should have established the prize ahead of time. We're on West Coast time here, people. We can't do that 3-hour conversion to the East Coast. It's way too difficult. Oops, Doug was here. Wait, does that count if Doug disappears? I think he's not here at 2:58 anymore. It's not till he actually says something. So all the bets are still alive. Yep.
Yeah, for some reason my
No, I didn't boot
audio
him
is
out. I don't
not
have the
working
power.
right.
Ron's running the control booth.
Audio.
And there he is again. 2:59. And we can't hear you yet, Doug. Unless I've got something going on here. Oh, there you go. Say something again, Doug.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. You know why? Because I had my own thing muted. So you were
Okay.
fine. It was a user error on my end. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing fine. Well, I was hearing you out of my computer, not my earphones, and so I had to fix that too. But we're good to go.
It didn't help that I had my computer muted at the same time. It could have been a
I
couple of mines.
I did that with someone not too long ago, and I was telling them I couldn't hear them. I couldn't hear them. They're figuring it out. Then I'm like, I'm muted. So
Marcel Marceau.
yeah, so I've been there, done that.
We were getting ready to go live on the glitch, and I couldn't figure out why my headset wasn't working. I was trying everything. We're plugging in and scrambling. Turns out there's a button back here that I accidentally hit that turns it off. So it was all my fault.
All right, doggies, get down. I already gave you your treat. All right. Yeah.
No,
Got the
no,
doggies
Mr.
in here.
Partain today. If you're not aware, Mr. Partain is not feeling well at all.
Oh, so he really isn't feeling well. Okay.
No, we actually had to cancel the glitch last night.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I'm getting a lot of grief for that. So that was kind of a bummer. I had done a whole bunch of homework on the history of Taiwan, and I was going to drop some fact bombs, but didn't get the opportunity.
The most I know about Taiwan, aside from it's the Free Republic of China, and it's not a part of the mainland, is that it was a video that I watched of them just, they're fighting on the legislative floor, and I'm seeing all these guys beating each other up, fighting over legislation. I look real carefully in the very middle of the screen, in the very back of the room, there's two women going at it, bam, bam, just beating. So
Well, it's
I use that as an example in my classes. I get a kick out of it.
what is it? India, where they hit each other with sticks sometimes? No, that was Pakistan. Anyways, yeah, we should have more of that in America. That would there'd be some entertainment there. But calling Taiwan a free republic is interesting because of the background.
Well, about as it's interesting because they're not communist, but they're not necessarily. That doesn't mean they're the opposite extreme. Let's put it that way.
Well, when Chiang Kai-shek came over in 1949, there were two main races of people. There was the indigenous Aboriginals,
Mm-hmm.
and those guys, they were the mountain people, and they beat back European powers throughout the centuries. They were pretty fierce.
Okay.
Over the years, some Han Chinese would come over, mostly single men, and they'd intermarry with the natives, and so that created kind of a separate breed of Taiwanese. Then Chiang Kai-shek comes over with his loyalists, which are basically upper class, and their soldiers. So those are two distinct classes. And Chiang Kai-shek ran it as a dictatorship, even though they called it the Republic of China. It wasn't until he passed away in 1975, about 4 or 5 years later, that the freedom movement started, and they actually got some participation from all sectors of the country. So it's one of the it's not a perfect country, but it's better than it was.
And it's better than mainland China.
Boy, I tell you, I can't figure out what's going on there. You've got a compromised Biden, compromised by the Chinese. Nancy Pelosi is a San Francisco politician, which means she's compromised by the Chinese, and they're disagreeing on why she's there and whether she should be there. And then out of nowhere, Mitch McConnell supports Nancy Pelosi, and his wife's Chinese, so I don't know what the game is there. There's a lot of moving parts. If I'm lucky, Cynthia Chung is an expert on that region, is going to come on my show in the next couple of days, and we're going to do a deep dive, and hopefully we can figure some things out.
All right, very nice. We the People says that he hopes Nancy Pelosi gets captured. I want to go back to that time when he's fighting in the legislature thing and have one of our maybe Laura Boebert or somebody like that just pow, just kind of. Not that I'm suggesting that there should be violence inflicted on any of our office holders. All right.
No, never.
You got
Unless
to throw
it's,
those qualifiers out there, otherwise you get arrested for insurrection.
unless they do it to each other. I'll put my money on Jim Jordan, college wrestling champion.
Oh, okay.
Tracy
Well,
call
that's right there. That you ever know? You know, you watch UFC. Who are the best fighters? The wrestlers.
most of the, some
Brazilian
of the time.
Jiu-Jitsu and the wrestlers.
Well, it used to be. You know, it's funny about MMA. It's gotten to the point where you've got to have a pretty high degree of expertise in just about everything. If you have a single weakness, someone will exploit it.
Yeah. Quite a long ways from those first days when Hoist Gracie was fighting a guy with boxing gloves on. But anyway.
I watched all of those, man. I binge watched back in the day when you could get them at the Blockbuster Video. It's the only place to get it. Yep.
All right, we're in Amendment 11, folks. Amendment 11. Hopefully everybody's here by now. Hello, Stephanie. Hello, Tracy. Hello, everybody else. I've got a lot to talk about and always very little time to do it. I actually didn't take lunch today in Fallbrook so I could get some stuff done in my office. So I've been here for like the last 2 hours, but right before the hour, I decided to finally plug in. But a lot to do, a lot to talk about. I'm working on 3 books right now. Two of them I'm desperately working on because one was supposed to have been done a month ago, and the other one I've got to get done in time for the event on September 17th. And on September 17th, Constitution Association is holding its annual dinner. And one of the speakers, aside from me, G. Edward Griffin, but he was unable to make the trip. So Warhamster and I went out there, and with another friend of ours, a guy named Bill, who did the videography, we had him interviewed, and it went really well, and so better than I expected. And I was glad that Bill decided to drive separately and got there later than us, because that gave Warhamster and I a lot of time to just hang out with G. Edward Griffin prior to the video cameras rolling, and just, for lack of a better way of putting it, just BS. I mean, we talked, of course, about history and his work and Constitution, all that jazz. But anyway, so I'm looking forward to when that can be available. It's going to be available first on September 17th at the Constitution Association dinner. So if you're in Southern California or not in Southern California, you want to go? DouglasVGibbs.com, PoliticalPistachio.com, or ConstitutionAssociation.com. You get the tickets online, $65. And the caterer, I'm probably undercharging, but because the food alone is worth the $65. RJ Sizzlin Steer. All right, do you want to add anything to that, sir?
Yeah, a couple things. I told them a little bit about this before you came on.
Okay.
But the one thing I did tell them is when I'm gonna be interviewing Ron, and I'm gonna be interviewing Mr. Griffin in the next couple of weeks, and but we're not going to be stealing your and that'll go live before yours. But we're not going to steal your thunder, because that interview you did with them, with him, was I had goosebumps at the end, and that doesn't happen to me all that often. So that was just a great. That back and forth between you two was about as good as it could have been. And who are the other speakers, if anybody wants to go?
Here in California, there's an organization called the Election Integrity Project California, and one of the leaders of that group is called, her name is Ruth Weiss, and Ruth Weiss will be one of our speakers. Makes sense during an election year to have her speaking. We're also going to have Nathan Duell from the Heritage Foundation. He is the Western Region Coordinator, and he's been in front of the camera quite a bit. Now, you can look him up and see some of his YouTube arguments and debates and presentations. He's a pretty good presenter. And then at the time, I thought that Mr. Griffin's video might only be 5 or 10 minutes when I scheduled Alan, but I'm going to keep him there because it needs to be heard, is my friend Alan Myers, who is on the Constitution Radio program with me on KMET. And here's the thing about him is a year ago at the Red Pill Expo, which is G. Edward Griffin's group, Alan gave a speech about the women of the American Revolution. 5 particular women in this particular speech, and he got a standing ovation. I'm like, well, if he gets a standing ovation at the Red Pill Expo, that's something I need at my event. So Alan will also give that presentation. So it's pretty good. I'm pretty excited. Originally we had Father Josiah Trenum, but he had something come up, and he's there every year. He is awesome. I feel like we're going to be missing something without him, but we still have a great lineup.
We the people asked, are you going to record it? We could probably get Bill to do that for you.
We could probably do that. I've never recorded it in the past, but you know what? That might be a good idea. We'll talk to Bill.
Yep.
Now, I never liked recording things like that because then for some people it's like, well, then why go? I can watch it later. And it's a fundraiser. Need to make money. Need people to show up. But nonetheless, now that
Yeah,
but now that there's an audience that I have that goes beyond the borders of Southern California, it might be a good idea.
live stream in that event, I don't think that's possible. Hey, Doug, before you jump into the 11th Amendment, I wanted to circle back on the 10th, something I didn't get a chance to bring up last time.
Okay.
The Federalist 45. I've read a really good summary from that. I just wanted to read a paragraph real quick on that.
Now that's, by the way, my aside from maybe Federalist 10, that's my favorite Federalist paper.
Yeah, I would agree. It's pretty high up there for me too. This is a summary of it, so I'm not going to read the exact quotes because it says Madison argues that the powers granted to the national government by the Constitution do not threaten the powers left to the states. Madison asserts that state governments will lose some of their importance and sovereignty as a result of the Constitution. However, this is essential to the preservation of the Union, which Madison asserts is essential to the public good. He points to the history of confederations and feudal states to support his claim that the federal government will to prove fatal to state governments. Historically, local sovereignties prevailed in contest with central authorities. Madison then lists several reasons why the state governments will continue to have significant power and relevance under the Constitution. He argues that if anything, it is the federal government that is at greatest risk of being rendered feeble, as under the Articles. The Constitution corrects that problem by offering the federal government greater powers. So it's a pretty interesting argument being made there.
Well, it goes into a conversation I had at last night's Constitution class, as a matter of fact, because the question was about the states and their sovereignty. Well, couldn't they still? Last night and this morning, actually, these conversations came up because the Article 1, Section 10 is very, very specific that the states can't do quite a few things that they normally did before because now there's a central government. Trade with other countries, agreement with other countries, import and export taxes, things like that. And like I told both of those groups, and what you're basically saying here is this: a certain amount of sovereignty had to be let go for the benefit, or let me rephrase that, for the good of the Union, so that the Union could properly function without the states interfering, and so on and so forth. So the states did give up some of those sovereign things, but they did not give up the sovereignty from an internal sense. And as it says in Federalist 45, that the powers left to states were for the internal order and improvement of the state. And I think that's a great way of putting it. James Madison, interesting with the Federalist Papers is because the Federalist Papers were originally only going to be by John Jay and Alexander Hamilton. They're both New Yorkers. They're writing these essays to New York because the anti-federalist movement, which really began with Robert Yates and John Lansing walking out of the Constitutional Convention during the 6th week of the convention because they were afraid of this document being written that would consolidate government, make it bigger, and so on and so forth. So there was a very strong anti-federalist movement in the state because of that. So Hamilton and John Jay felt it necessary to write these articles, these essays. And then Hamilton went to Madison and says, I know you're not from New York, but man, this involves you too, because if New York doesn't ratify the Constitution, it may be difficult to get other states to. And so Madison jumped in. He started writing the articles too, but he's originally from Virginia. So you have two New Yorkers and a Virginian, basically pleading with New York, you need to ratify this. Here's why. The anti-federalists simultaneously began to write their own essays answering each of those Federalist Papers. And I'm going to tell you what, your studies are not complete until you read Federalist 1, then Anti-Federalist 1. Federalist 2, then Anti-Federalist 2. That way you kind of get both sides of the argument together. And it's kind of interesting when you get a chance to do that. Down the road, years down the road, I don't have the time now, I would like to write a book with commentary about the full commentary on all of them, about the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers. But I don't
So
think
was
that'll
it?
be for a few years.
So would so Federalist One would come out, and then the Anti-Federalist would come back and write a rebuttal.
Yep,
And that's
you
sort of
got
like,
it.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's fascinating. I don't know if you've ever done that where you went just mano y mano, man, paper per paper. It's very interesting.
Well,
It's a good
I'm
read.
over. I'm overdue to reread the Federalist Papers in order. So I may try to do that this time. Go back and forth.
Yeah.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't even know there were Anti-Federalist Papers. And and like I said, it gives you the other side. And I'm gonna tell you what, when you're reading the Anti-Federalist Papers, you're gonna find yourself going, with hindsight being
What?
2020 here from 2022, those Anti-Federalists had a point. So just be aware that while you're reading the Anti-Federalist Papers, you're gonna find yourself agreeing with them quite a bit.
Well, you know who's I know I do know a number of Anti-Federalists, and in fact, the most probably including my good friend Adam Kokesh, the libertarian. He makes the argument that the Articles of Confederation were the best document ever written. One of these days, I'd like to have him on the air with you to have that debate. But Adam's so boisterous in his expressions, I don't know if you can actually have a civilized conversation with him on the air. But we'll try it one of these days.
We the people, you do have to pay federal income tax in Florida, Texas, and South Carolina. You don't have to pay state income tax. Can we buy these books on your website, Doug? You talk about my books, yes. Everybody else's
Oh,
books, no. But
the
I have
Federalist,
written 8.
the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers. You just go into a search engine, you'll find them.
Yeah,
They're all over the place. They're easy.
yeah. And there's many, many different printings of them. And matter of fact, I've got 1, 2, 3 here. And I've got like probably half a dozen up in Oregon. But yeah, I definitely, one of these days, like I said, I want to sit down and write these books. My store, is that what you're asking for the link on? For my 8 books, that would be douglasvgibbs.com/store. douglasvgibbs.com/store.
Very creative.
And I've been doing stuff with the site in preparation for its upgrade. To try to get some ideas out there to who we're working with. But we'll so if you go there and it kind of looks a little different, that's why I'm working on stuff. All right, now Amendment 11. But no, it's I'm glad you brought all this stuff up, Warhamster and audience. Good to have you there. I will say this. I'm not sure which I enjoyed most. The time with G. Edward Griffin before the camera started rolling. The time with Edward Griffin when the camera was rolling. Or the fact that I was in a vehicle with Brady, a.k.a. Warhamster, for 2.5 hours up and 2.5 hours back, and those conversations. Because that was actually a very, very good part of the trip, too. I definitely feel the better man as a result.
Yeah, we should have had it. We should have recorded part of that. That would have been good.
Call it car conversations or something.
And don't forget, we had the pleasure of a monologue from Dennis Jackson.
Yeah, I called Dennis Jackson, who's a co-host on my KMET radio show on the way back, and that was a lot of fun too. All right,
Yeah, he was fired up.
all right. WTPSD2.
That he's talking about. We the people, South Dakota also has no state income tax. I don't know if that's correct, but that's what Lisa has said, and I'm not going to contradict her because I have no information
Yeah,
otherwise. Road
Tracy
trip.
wants to join our next road trip, I think. Okay.
Done deal, Tracy.
Yeah, but it depends on vehicular situations. Could be in a tight little white truck. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll have a new 4Runner by the next time we do a road trip. That's coming very soon.
Yeah, you're done with those other brands now, huh? After seeing all these Toyotas lasting so long.
If you had any idea how much money I put into my BMW over the last 2 years, it was. I mean, it's paid. It's like I had to buy 2 cars for the price of one. That's
I
the repairs.
have a Toyota Tacoma pre-runner in 2003, 221,000 miles, and it still runs like a champ.
Yeah, and I can't go a week without an engine light going on, and just to open the car costs $100. I mean, just to look
Yeah.
at it.
Everybody's
So
like,
it's,
Doug, you're buying a foreign vehicle. No, I'm not. It was assembled in Kentucky. All right, let's get rolling, or we'll chit-chat during the whole show, and we won't get anything done here.
all right. I'll zip it.
Yeah. Oh, September 2nd. I'm also going to start going do some Constitution class type stuff with We the People also. Anyway, okay. Amendment 11. The judicial power of the United States. In other words, federal courts of the United States. That's the federal government. The judicial power of the United States shall be construed not to extend to any suit in law or equity commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state or by citizens, or subjects of a foreign state. What we're talking about, my friends, is in the 11th Amendment is something that was triggered by a lawsuit that, well, let me back up. Let me explain something. So early on, when the Constitution was being written originally, and all of this was being thought of, and the fears is they put into the Constitution the judicial branch being the weakest branch of the three branches of government. The judicial branch does not have, or was not originally, a branch with any power other than applying the law to the cases they heard. Even if that law was unconstitutional, it was not their business to determine if something was constitutional or not. Their job was to apply the law to the cases they heard. Period. Now, that said, what wound up happening is Chisholm v. Georgia. Chisholm v. Georgia was a case that popped up where it was a challenge against 1795. I believe it was. No, that's when the 11th Amendment was ratified. Now I can't remember when Chisholm v. Georgia was, but that's okay. So Chisholm v. Georgia, what it was is there was this case in which Georgia was sued over product, clothing, I think it was, being sent. I want to say South Carolina. I can't remember all the exacts off the top of my head right now, but it was a lawsuit. And so there was somebody had sued the state saying, hey, you guys interfered with this commercial transaction kind of thing. And Georgia says, we're not showing up to the case. We don't have to because of our sovereignty. So we're not going to even show up. And this 1793, that's when Chisholm v. Georgia was. I just looked it up. And they didn't even show up, and the Supreme Court entered a default judgment against Georgia. And in the opinion, it said partly it was because Georgia, you don't have sovereignty when it came to this case. You don't have sovereignty when it comes to dealing with us. Your immunity as a sovereign state doesn't matter to us. Now, when you've got the courts telling a state, you're sovereign when we tell you you're sovereign, that's a problem. Remember, the 1793 founding generation is still around. So now it's time to fix this. So to eliminate this problem, what they decided to do, and I'll understand some, this is the only time that the federal courts have been slapped. I wish it had happened more times in history. This is the only time. I wonder if this was, what's the word? A little bit of kindling for the rise of judicial review. I wonder.
I was about to say the same thing. And this was 1795, and the predecessor of judicial review, which was Hilton versus United States, was the following year. So, yeah, you think you're onto something, maybe, huh?
Yeah, perhaps. The time periods and things coinciding the way they are, yeah, it suggests that. All right.
So on that topic, real quick, not much of a rabbit hole because it's on topic. I had a recent conversation where I was trying to explain to somebody that the judicial branch was supposed to be the weakest, and he goes, "Where does it say that?" I go, "I'll get back to you." So where am I going to go looking for that? Where's the best?
Well, first of all, it doesn't say you are the weakest. It's conversations, and you read Madison's notes, and it talks about that. But really,
That's
all
what
you
I
got to
said.
do is look at the authorities given. All right. I mean, if I had a whiteboard right now, and this is what I do in the classes, and I'll put up the board and say, all right, let's list all of the legislative authorities. You know, and I mean, that whole whiteboard, 3 columns worth, will be full of stuff. Right? And it's okay. Let's go to the executive branches. What's the executive branch's authorities? And you might maybe complete the first column. Then we go, okay, the judicial branch. What are their authorities? They're constitutional authorities, not counting judicial review. I think 3 or 4 things pop up. So that alone explains to you, shows you where the power is. But let's go a little deeper. President has the power to veto, but who can override that veto? Congress. So ultimately, who's the stronger of the 2 branches? Congress. The judicial branch can apply laws to cases, and they can write opinion. But who can override that? And I hate to say this in today's political environment, but it's true. Congress. Exceptions clause. They basically can veto, in a sense, or override the veto, should I say, of the courts. With the exceptions clause. If the courts, they believe, are putting out unconstitutional rulings or opinions, Congress has got... So who has the most power? You don't have to have them tell you. It's obvious. Now, that said, I would go through Madison's notes and find the places where they're talking about the judicial branch. How you do that is because you got Madison's notes on Avalon Project, right? But it only gives you the dates. Then on a separate screen, you say, hey, where in Madison's notes is the discussions about the judicial branch? And there'll be certain websites that will come up with dates for you. Find that date, find it on Avalon Project, and then read it. That's a way to find stuff sometimes. Avalon Project is my favorite online resource.
Yeah, you gave that to one to me like the first week we met, and I spent like a month and buried it. I go, this is too much. There's an awful lot of material in there.
Avalon Project is addicting. It's one of the few things Yale has done correctly. My favorite resource is 1828 Webster's Dictionary, which is under my laptop right now. It's so big. That's the reason why you're not getting the weird stuff in the corners like you usually get. And then the Founders Constitution, which is a 5-volume set. And then Avalon Project. Those are like among my 3 favorites. But for what I do. And I do a lot of research. I do a lot of reading. And so anyway, matter of fact, today somebody asked me, hey, Doug, do you have a list of Gavin Newsom's unconstitutional actions? So the hour and a half I was sitting at my desk waiting for the show to start, that's what I was doing. And I came up with a preliminary list. Boy, that guy is in trouble if any constitutionalist gets a hold of him. All right. Not that I'm suggesting I'm getting ready to go after him, but I might be. All right. So Amendment 11, we just went through that. We've got, now, I want you to flash over with me, if you don't mind, over to Section 3 of our Pocket Constitution. Page 13, if you've got this one. And what you'll notice is in that top paragraph, right under where it says Section 2, Article 3, Section 2, there are 2 places where there are brackets. Those brackets have made those parts obsolete, which is what the 11th Amendment made obsolete. So you'll see that because Section 2, what it does, it gives basically a list of what the federal courts have the authority over. And in brackets it says between a state and citizens of another state, and between a state and citizens thereof, and foreign states, citizens or subjects. So now, what does that mean? Can you not sue if you're from another state, a state? Can La Raza not sue Arizona for the immigration law? Oh, they can sue them. The federal courts just can't take the case. That's what this is saying. So if the highest then court that can take that case is a state court, and you got to sue them where the quote-unquote crime took place, which would be in Arizona, for example, then La Raza would have to sue Arizona in the Arizona state courts. Now, this is just me, but if there's a lawsuit that works its way through a state court system and even gets to the state Supreme Court against a state, it better be pretty darn good if it's going to have a chance. Anything frivolous won't even get through that first state court. And so actually it's a brilliant amendment, because what it does is it stops frivolous lawsuits against the states, in addition to correcting the situation where the Supreme Court told Georgia, you're only sovereign when we tell you you are.
Well, that's very topical today because we just got a ruling from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court saying that the mail-in ballots can remain. And basically people in Pennsylvania have no more recourse. What they need to do is vote in better judges, but that's going to be hard to do when they keep having mail-in ballots. So it's a tough situation. It's what happens when you let your guard down and let the inmates run the asylum for too long. It's really hard to get them out.
In California, where there was a requirement that everybody got a mail-in ballot, every voter also received a mail-in ballot, that was done by executive order. It just got struck down by a federal court because it was an executive order. You can't change election law with an executive order. And that's what he did. So, yeah, there's all kinds of situations going on in the courts right now. All of this is very appropriate when it comes to what we're talking about. But then again, it always seems to be. What about state against another state, says S. Flacky? States can sue each other.
Article 3, Section 2, that's the Supreme Court, takes care of that.
The Supreme Court has original authority, and that's actually Section 3, where it says they have original authority, but you're on target. Yeah, let me go back to Section 3. Oh, no, you're right. It's still a Section 2. I apologize. It's just a paragraph down from the first paragraph. You're right. I'm wrong. I have to admit it. Still in Section 2. In all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, consuls, and those in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. Pretty clear. Right under where it says Section 2. I'll slap myself for that one. Every once in a while I will get a section number wrong.
I only knew that. I only knew that because I looked it up last week.
It's still fresh in your cranium, huh? But yeah, so states can sue each other, and if a state is a party to a case, Supreme Court's supposed to take that case. Wait a second. When Texas sued those other states, did it go straight to the Supreme Court, or did the Supreme Court refuse it? Well, how about this? Biden just sued, what was it, Texas or Arizona? Sued Arizona. Did he file it with the Supreme Court?
Nope.
No. Huh. Arizona's a party. It should have gone straight to the Supreme Court. Boy, it's almost like the Biden administration either doesn't know what the Constitution says, or they're ignoring what it says.
Both.
Huh. Probably the latter, huh?
I'll take all of the above.
Take all of the above. Yeah, a bunch of criminals are running the government. Yeah, we the people, you might be onto something. From Pennsylvania, according to Monica, only 2 conservative judges. The rest are Democrats. Democrats is what you meant, but I know what you meant. Yeah. So that's the 11th Amendment. Good discussion regarding that, too. Now, one real quick comment about it. Notice at the very end it said, or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. So let's say there's a group down in Mexico that wants to sue Arizona for the immigration law. They can do it, but federal court can't take that case. The highest it can go is the state Supreme Court. So understand when it says in the 11th Amendment that these cases aren't allowed, what it means is at the federal level. That very beginning. The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend to any suit in law or equity commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. Notice how it separated citizens and subjects? It's because citizens and subjects are 2 different things. So for those out there who are trying to define citizen with the definition of a subject, they are different things.
What other countries have citizens?
There's a number of them now, but when we became a country, very few, if any. Citizen was something that was pretty much forgotten since the fall of Rome. What you had were subjects and nobles. You had the privileged and the not so privileged. And in a system where there's citizens, the citizens have the privilege of enjoying the immunities and privileges of that society. And in a system. I love you too. Stop it. I got a doggy trying to hop in my lap here. And so in a system where there's subjects, the subjects serve the government. But when you have citizens, the government's supposed to serve the citizens. Where does the word citizen first come from? It actually comes from a member of a city. Citizens, SCITI, comes from the word. It comes from cities. Originally, though, what we had were city-states. You didn't have these huge countries at the beginning, did you? You had these city-states. And if you are a member of a city that, as a citizen, a member, you got the privileges and immunities of that city. If you were from outside the city, you wouldn't have those same privileges and immunities while visiting. You would have to become a citizen in order to enjoy those privileges and immunities.
Where did denizen come from? Or is citizen a combination of a denizen of a city?
Yeah. I don't know where denizen came from. I haven't looked that far. That's a good question. See, now next time I look this up, I'll be like, where's denizen from? It's all Warhamster's fault. See, I have to work harder because of people like him.
I'll be quiet from now on. I'm sorry. My bad.
No, this is good. All right, let's continue. Now, the 12th Amendment, a lot of people have been asking me to do a video on the 12th Amendment, and I haven't yet. So hopefully this will be forthcoming. But let's talk about it. Now, the 12th Amendment was a response to the election of 1800. In the election of 1800, all hell broke loose. It did not go... Matter of fact, Jefferson was even willing to create a real hubbub if he didn't get elected because of the way things were going with it. The Federalist Party was so against the government, they were almost tempted to treat the Federalists like the Tories had been treated. You know, arrested or thrown out. And so let's read, and then we'll figure it out as we go along. So Amendment 12, the electors, now these are the people who elect the president. These are people chosen to be the electors for the president. The electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for president and vice president, one of whom at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves. Now, let's stop there. I can't count how many people have said, hey, I've heard in the Constitution it says that DeSantis and Trump cannot be on the same ticket because they're both from Florida. That's what the Constitution says. I've even heard people say on TV with authority, well, they can't because that's what the Constitution says. That's not what the Constitution says. Constitution says that an elector who is going to vote for president and vice president on separate ballots, they're not supposed to be on the same ballot as they are today, cannot vote for a president and vice president that are both from the same state that they are. So what that means is, as a ticket, none of the electors from Florida could vote for a Trump-DeSantis ticket. They can vote for Trump or they can vote for DeSantis, but they can't vote for them both together.
Same
but
would apply.
Only the Florida electors.
Same would apply to the California electors if you had a Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris ticket.
Absolutely. You got it. Of course, then Kamala Harris would claim that she's from
Canada.
Well, it would have to be a United States location. I'm searching for a city named Jamaica.
Oh, Jamaica, New York exists.
Oh, it does? Okay, she's from Jamaica, New York, suddenly. Doug, if you call these Democrats and rhinos on Forkbook and Twatter, they won't ban you. I hold politicians and woke corporations accountable for their actions. I swear the white hats have taken over. I'm not sure exactly what you're saying there, but I think I know what you mean. I've been banned on Facebook a number of times. I'm rarely there anymore because I've been in Facebook jail so often. It's like every time I open my mouth, they throw me in jail. Twitter, I do have one Facebook account and my Twitter where I am active, but it's because they're attached to my blog. When I blog, it automatically goes out to them. I never visit those sites, actually. All right, here we go. So, electors shall meet in their respective states, vote by ballot for president, vice president, one of whom at least shall not be inhabited in the same state with themselves. They shall name in their ballots the person voted for as president, and in distinct ballots the person voted for as vice president. Notice once again, distinct ballots. Presidential election, vice presidential election. Separate ballots. Today, it's Trump/Pence, right? No. What if you don't like the running mate the president chose? Should you not be able to vote for somebody else's vice president? It's supposed to be the president running, the people running for president, and the people running for vice president. He's not supposed to choose who's vice president. The electors are. And if they don't like who he chose, so be it. In a distinct, separate ballot. And they shall make distinct lists of all persons voted for as president, and of all persons voted for as vice president, and of the number of votes for each, which lists they shall sign and certify and transmit sealed to the seat of government of the United States, directed to the president of the Senate. So each state, the electors got together, they voted, they put an envelope, and they sealed it, and they said, we certify this is our envelope, it's accurate, these are the votes, here you go, VP, you can count him as president of the Senate. There is nothing in the Constitution that says that it's the vice president's job to certify or decertify. He is there to count them. No different than the register of voters are there to count them. You don't expect the register of voters to go, of course they do this, we found out in the last 2020 election, but you don't expect them to go, well, this isn't a valid vote, toss that, oh, this one's not valid, toss that. They're not supposed to do that. They're just there to count. That's it. All right. The president
that's the Mike Pence question. That's a Mike Pence question right there. So, what could Pence have done?
The suggestion to me, and I agree with, is that he could have said, hey, there might be something wrong here, and there are rules. It's not constitutional. This is not the Constitution, but the House and the Senate have their own rules that say that if a person from one house says, hey, there's something wrong here with the electoral votes, I want these sent back to the state so the state can take a look at them. If he can get a second from an opposite party of the other house, then that can be done. So Pence may have been able to, and probably should have said, hey, I think there's a problem here. I would suggest that somebody make a motion, just send these back. Anybody want to make that motion? Anybody move sending them back?
They did that, I thought.
Someone made a motion, but nobody seconded it.
Nobody from the House? Well, not one single person from the House?
Right, yes. Ted Cruz from the Senate made the motion.
Yeah, but he had several of the Republican senators did, but I thought didn't like a Jim Jordan?
But you needed it to be a Democrat from the House. It has to be an opposing party person.
Opposing party. So that's a rule because there was no mention of Democrats or Republicans or parties in the Constitution. So
right, and this is a rule that was created by the houses later, and they can make their own rules.
You have to find that. Send that over to me if you know where that is. I want to look into that a bit more.
Okay, I have to find it. All right. Organized chaos. All right, that I just described my office, and actually I was telling him the other day it's not organized chaos anymore. Now it's just chaos. But Pence is a traitor and pedo-Christian fake.
Well, I'm not seeing.
I'm not a huge fan of Pence, but I don't know if traitor is the full extent of where he's been. I'm not as angry with Pence as everybody else is, but he said, hey, it's not my constitutional authority. I can't do something about it. He was right. Okay. Let's continue. So the President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and the House of Representatives, open all the certificates, and the votes shall then be counted. Once again, he's there just to count them. The person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be president, if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed. And if no person have such majority, then from the person having the highest numbers, not exceeding 3 on the list of those voted for as president, the House of Representatives shall choose immediately by ballot the president, but in choosing the president, the votes shall be taken by states. The representation from each state having one vote A quorum for this purpose shall consist of a member or members from 2/3 of the states, and a majority of all the states shall be necessary to a choice. If the House of Representatives shall not choose a president whenever the right of choice shall devolve upon them, this is in brackets because it's been changed, before the 4th day of March, that's because it's not March anymore, next following, then the vice president shall act as president, or as in the case of death or other constitutional disability of the president. Here's why this happened. This is part of the reason why they did this way. See, part of the problem was in the Jeffersonian election, Aaron Burr was the top guy he was against. Aaron Burr was also technically a member of the Republican Party, but he was more moderate than Jefferson. We'll put it that way. And so the Federalist electors were voting for Aaron Burr. Yes, go ahead.
They were called the Democratic Republicans at the time, right?
No. They didn't become the Democratic Republicans till the 1820s. A lot of our history books put Democratic Republicans now, early on. They were not called that until there were two factions battling for control in the 1820s, primarily because of Andrew Jackson. They were the Republicans. Not the Republican Party of today, but they call themselves Republicans. I usually call them Jeffersonian Republicans for the differentiation between them and today's Republican Party. They were not going by Democratic Republicans as of yet. That did not happen until the factions began battling in the 1820s.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Now, that said, so Jefferson and Aaron Burr and Adams and a few other people are all on the ballot. And it's really down to Jefferson and Aaron Burr. Everybody else are kind of in the distance. But nobody got the majority of electoral votes. So it goes to the House for the House to vote. 35 times. 35 times the House of Representatives vote for president, and 35 times nobody gets the majority. And there were a handful of states that didn't even give a vote because they were split and could not make a decision. Vermont being one of them. Vermont had three representatives. One voted for Burr, one voted for Jefferson, and the third one, a guy named Lyon, was in jail. He was in jail because he had violated the sedition clause. He had written a number of articles that it was a Vermont paper that criticized the Adams administration, so he was thrown in jail for 4 months, along with paying a fine of like $200, $250, I think it was. I think it was $200. And so Lyon is in jail. Now, during the election, Lyon actually got reelected while in jail. He is the only congressman in history to be reelected while in jail. See, now Marion Barry almost got that one. It happened to him while he was... And anyway. All right. There's actually been other people in like state offices and city that have been reelected or elected while in jail. But when it comes to Congress, Lyon is the only guy in history as a member of Congress to be reelected to his seat while in jail. So 35 votes. Then Lyon gets let out of jail. And Lyon trots off to the House of Representatives. He's from Vermont. Remember, Vermont's got 3. One of them's voting for Burr. One of them's voting for Jefferson. And here comes Lyon. He is no fan of Adams. Adams' law just put him in jail. The people who like Adams are voting for Burr. The guy who said that law was unconstitutional and needs to be repealed is Jefferson. Take a guess who Lyon voted for. Jefferson. And that second vote from Vermont put Vermont from being a no vote to a Jefferson vote. And it was actually, I shouldn't say it was the vote, because it was actually 2 votes that went in Jefferson's favor on that one. But it was one of the 2, but that put him over. But I've always believed that it was because of Lyon that Jefferson got elected.
Doug, I always thought that was Delaware.
I for the longest time thought it was one of those other states like either Delaware or Rhode Island, and then I did some further research and I realized it was Vermont. Vermont, by the way, was a brand new state. So you remember when the Constitution was written, Vermont was a disputed property between New York and New Hampshire. They're fighting over it. And nobody got it. They became their own state, 14th state. And the 15th state was Kentucky.
I was also going to comment that in the 2020 election, we almost had a dead guy win his race, lost by 2 points.
I thought the dead guy won. Oh, that's the other dead guy.
Yeah.
Who was the dead guy that almost won?
Oh, God, I don't know. It was some dead guy. I'm pretty sure he voted Democrat.
Anyway, all right. Yeah, well, we got a lot of dead people in Congress right now. Well, they're brain dead anyway. Okay.
There you go.
All right, so that's the story. This is what was going on. This is the reason. Now, the next part of this says, the person having the greatest number of votes as vice president shall be vice president if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed. Notice, once again, it's a separate election. It's possible for, let's say, the president to not get or get enough electoral votes and the vice president to be something different. Two separate elections. We weren't talking about tickets yet. This is something that the political parties brought about. And I want you to understand something. When the Constitution was originally written, the first 7 articles, there were no political parties. And political parties were even frowned upon by a number of those guys. Now, James Madison knew that factions were necessary because factions arise naturally. But that's why he pushed us being a republic, because he said factions are what destroy democracies. Political parties, in other words, destroy democracies. The more democratic you become, the more chance that the power people and the wealth people behind the political parties can destroy your country. But as a republic, it protects against those factions. And almost all of our Republican parts of our government mechanisms have vanished. All right.
Lisa C has a good question in chat. Which
When and
you know
why
the
did
answer
it
to.
change to have the president VP on the same ticket? Once again, the parties did that eventually, but it began pretty much around the 1820s, about the same time Andrew Jackson was pushing for democracy. That was also when it changed from the electors voting for president to the people voting, and then the electors being expected to follow how the people voted. Originally, people didn't vote for president. Originally, only the electors did. The people campaigned to their electors for their favorite guy. But the people themselves did not actually hold a vote when it came to president.
I'd like to see something like that reinstated. But
Yeah,
then,
well,
if
they
we
did
talk,
everything they could to protect us from democracy.
yeah, well, not quite enough apparently.
Well, my next, one of my next books, I'm working on 3 books all at once right now, and I'm under pressure to get them all done. But one of them is called Repeal Democracy, and I plan to have 100 copies of it available at the event on September 17th to give away. Doug, why would you do that? Don't you want to wait, make any money? No, I believe that that's an incentive, number 1, to come. Number 2, I want you to have the opportunity to read that without having to buy it. And then when you're so jazzed about it, buy like 10 more copies and give them to your 10 best friends. Or advertise the heck out of it. Surely if I get 100 people excited about a book, the sales will go up. We'll see. So I'm willing to put out the money to buy the first 100 copies. And also those copies at the event are going to have a special on the cover, special event edition. So there'll be also limited editions. All right, let's continue. All right, so the vice president shall be vice president if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no person have a majority, then from the 2 highest numbers on the list, the Senate shall choose the vice president. Why would the Senate choose the vice president and the House choose the president?
Because he's the president of the Senate.
Right, they're choosing their own president of the Senate. Absolutely. A quorum for the purpose shall consist of 2/3 of the whole number of senators. Notice it didn't say present, just the whole number. Let's see. And a majority of the whole number shall be necessary to a choice. And then my favorite sentence, because it applies to someone like Kamala Harris, but no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States. In other words, If you're going to be vice president, you have to be eligible to be vice president. Natural born citizen, everything. Why would they have the need to put that? Because prior to this amendment, the election didn't work this way. The election was for president of the United States, and every elector actually voted for two people, one of which couldn't be from the same state as themselves. They voted for two people for president. They added up all the votes. The person with the most votes and a majority was president. The second place winner was vice president. The problem is, typically, because political attitudes and factional ideological preferences shift, you've heard of the pendulum, right? What would happen is you would wind up with the top guys of each side at the top. And then one might get at one, and then the next party might get the next one, and it just goes this, right? But the thing is, what would happen then is you've got one party as president, a different party as vice president. First of all, how do you get anything done when the president and the vice president's bickering all the time? Number two, is it safe to have a situation where the vice president hates the president because they're of a different ideology, and then they realize they're only one bullet away from entering the Oval Office? Just saying.
And if they still had that, the 25th Amendment would be even more deadly.
Oh, yeah. And then the 25th Amendment wouldn't even... Oh, yeah. Talking about mutiny 24/7, man. It'd be happening all the time. So, president, vice president, separate ballots, but typically now, rather than first place and second place winner. So now you're more likely to have two people from the same party to be president or vice president. But once again, they're still distinct ballots. But because the vice president now is no longer just the second place winner of a presidential election, there was a fear they might say, well, then I don't need to be eligible. You do need to be eligible. You're a heartbeat away from being president. So, last sentence, VP must meet the same eligibility requirements as the president. VP is only the president of the Senate. Well, VP has other jobs, but that's their primary job. And the VP early on was very active in the Senate. Was there pretty much for every meeting, wielding the gavel, unless they had to be out of town or doing some of the work of the president. Then a president pro tempore would act as president of the Senate until the vice president's able to come back. So. And we're 4 minutes away from top of the hour. Worked out nicely. Any questions, comments, more from this chat room or from Warhamster? All right. So here's the thing. Next week we're going to... Yeah, go ahead.
I had one that I was going to get to if we had any time, but, going back to the 10th again, you have a nice little story about the Kentucky resolutions, and we didn't get into that on the 10th. So if you want to fill a couple minutes, that'd be a fun one.
All right. Before I do that, before I talk about the Kentucky resolutions, it's not a story, but it is a little bit of an anecdote. Next week, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, we're going to talk about the war between the states. We're going to talk about Abraham Lincoln. We're going to talk about the North versus the South, who some people, matter of fact, 46% of Americans from a study that from 1987 thinks was our war for independence. And the South won, according to these people. But anyway, we'll be talking about the war between the states next week. And now that I said that, Ron is going to be like, oh, I got to be well for that.
I was just going to say...
I just lost your... Or did he answer a phone?
That's because I'm calling Ron to tell him we're almost done.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like I heard this dial tone earlier. I'm like, not dial tone, but the ringing and stuff. I'm like, what's going on here? All right, Kentucky resolutions, real quick. Kentucky resolutions, we had a lot of questions over whether or not Kentucky could do certain things as a new state. There was a lot of arguments over it. And Jefferson, in his draft of Kentucky resolution, says, yeah, they can. In fact, a state can nullify. A state can nullify because, he didn't say this exact words, but this is what he basically said, if a law is not constitutional, it's not a law. John Marshall, of course, did write that in 1803, right before he then twisted it into something that's not supposed to be. Nullification. Because why would nullification be so important? Why would Jefferson say, hey, a state can nullify? Nullify mean ignore a federal law. You know what? It's not constitutional. We're not going to follow it. Stick it. Pound sand, federal government. Why would a state be able to do that? Because the states they're the parties of the contract. They're the parents. They're the ones that created that monster. And if that monster is doing things that's not constitutional, they have the authority to say, hey, that's junk. We're not going to do it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's where we've been hammering home. The states were supposed to be the check on the federal government, and the people were supposed to be the check on the states.
Right.
And that's what we have to get back to. And that requires the people to get involved locally.
Well, my Fallbrook class this morning, too, they got into this conversation about, but how do we stop gabbing? We got to get the federal government to, no. You don't want the federal government policing your state. You police your state. Oh, but, they're committing fraud, and then we can't do this, we can't do that. Well, if you decided you can't do it, then it's over. Quit deciding you can't do it and find a way that you can. Find a way to put your state in check. Find a way to get involved. Find a way to throw the bums out. Find a way to change the state, or worst comes to worst, go somewhere else and starve the state of money. But do something, because it's up to us to make sure our states are following our natural rights and the rule of law, not the federal government. They're not there to police your state. It drives me nuts.
Yep. And on that note, thank you, everybody, and we will see you all next week. Should be a fun one.
All right. Thanks for the time, folks.
Hopefully Ron will time us out momentarily, and we won't have too much dead air.
All right. Well, I'm just going to leave studio, so we'll see you later.
Oh, I got to sit here staring at the screen all by myself.
You can leave studio.
I guess I can. There'll be dead air there.
All right,
everybody. We'll see y'all later.